Okay, so I will be the first to admit that I'm kind of stretching the definition of a walkthrough for this one. It's more just a playthrough really, because it's not really difficult enough. I doubt many people are going to be struggling with this. It's not even something I have nostalgia for. I recently discovered the Flashpoint, which is a way to play a lot of these like older Flash games. Originally just wanted to play Last Stand, Castle Defense, you know, the stuff I grew up with, and ended up just seeing a whole bunch of older stuff. I think I ended up looking on YouTube for it, and someone else was playing this, so I wanted to give it a little bit of a crack. And I'll make sure I put a link in the description to Flashpoint, so if anyone is also interested in reliving the days where they were messing around and not doing their work in computer class. With how shit the world is, sometimes you just need a little bit of nostalgia to go back to that happy place. So this is, I guess you would call it a base versus base type game. It's like a subgenre of strategy, and it's very simple. It's got a really like nice kind of UI layout, and maybe that's why people remember it so fondly. It seems like a strange thing to say, but a lot of Flash games at the time were just absolute jank. A lot of the menus seemed more like Excel spreadsheets, and there's certainly, you know, subcategories of games like that to this day that are exactly the same. Project Zomboid, it still looks like that, but it's a very simple one. This general strategy is you want to try and hold off making units as much as possible until you build these salvage yards, and that's what will increase your income. So you get it in ticks of 50, so just enough to buy a shovel guy. I'm not certain if that's meant to be kind of representing anything in particular. I didn't know hillbillies were in particular renowned for their love of shovels. Maybe there's something I'm missing. But you get the income passively. I think it starts off something like $50 every 5 seconds, give or take. And then when you build these salvage yards, it decreases that tick. So we're now at the point that we're getting $50 for every second, pretty much. And that's the maximum amount it can have. And once you got to that point, pretty much you've won. There isn't a huge amount of difficulty. The only real challenge comes in some of the later stages, where you'll be getting hit by quite a lot, and so you need to find a way to hold off the horde until you build that up. But once you've got it up to max level, it's going to be pretty hard to lose. So for this one, we just send shovelmen every now and then when they get a little bit too close to us, and just so we can build up a stack of these five guys with shotguns. The hillbillies with a shotgun. Darlene, get me my shotgun. And for the first stage, that's pretty much all you need. We managed to save up quite enough, so we're going to get one of these survivalists, which is just going to add a little bit more range firepower. And as you might expect, when you're facing zombies that can only hurt you by scratching and biting at you, range attacks are the way to deal with them. And in all honesty, the two buildings on the right there, you don't really need to. I ended up building the church just to try and show off some units. I was thinking about building the moonshine distillery just so I could show off one of the moonshine units, but honestly, the last two units, the moonshine thrower and the preacher man, you don't need to use them, and the game is pretty short. I think the only real replay value is you trying to complete it in a shorter and shorter amount of time, and if that's your goal, as soon as you get up to a survivalist, there's no point going any higher than that. It's more than enough to deal with any of the enemies that the zombies will throw at you. It's kind of a shame that they didn't have a few more levels, maybe a few more tougher bosses, which kind of justified their use, but this was the old west of games. I mean, it's made for free, so there wasn't exactly a huge incentive to make sure it's like well balanced or anything. Just make a game, release it online. I must admit, I really don't know how you made money from this kind of thing. I mean, I have a couple of friends on my Discord who do work in game design. Probably should rack their brains a little bit more about it, although I don't believe they were active at this point. In fact, they themselves would have been messing around in computer class and not doing their work and playing this instead, because holy shit, I don't know about anyone else, but IT classes in the UK were completely pointless. Ended up having to print screen every single action I was doing to prove that I knew how to click on file, click print, click save. I'm not joking. It was so wild thinking back that you had some boomer, and I don't mean that in an offensive term, I mean it purely descriptive, but if it's offensive, it's offensive, who knows less about computers than the kids there, telling them how to use a computer. It's like nowadays. I mean, my little sister was what? She's 10 years old now, a big old age gap, and she knows more about how to use the iPad than my mum does. Like, younger people are just better with technology. That's just the thing. Older people didn't grow up with it. I'm getting off track, aren't I? So, stage 2. We do exactly the same thing. We save up our money. When they start to get a little bit closer, we send some shovelmen out and we just build it right back up. I think, and I don't want to criticize a game that was made ages ago. I am very curious about how they kind of made money. I'm assuming when you're posting stuff on Newgrounds and that kind of stuff, it was advertisements, same as YouTube and stuff, or maybe a lot of these games were kind of like a proof of concept, something that people made to show, hey, look, I know how to program, I know how to do this kind of stuff. Can I join a games company? I don't know. But secondly, getting back on track, I suppose one of the weaknesses of this game is the fact that all the enemies you come across by stage 1. The only difference in the difficulty as you go up is how many enemies get sent at you and how quickly the higher tier of zombies start to get sent out. Well, we see one of them right now, the Creeker. I'm not sure. I'm not certain if all the different zombies have a specific name in this game, so I'm just going to name them whatever the hell I want. So you've got your basic kind of shamblers here that just constantly come in a straight line. Pretty much just meat shields. They don't really pose much of a threat. The only thing they can even harm is the shovelman. Each shovelman will hit and get hit in return. There's no way of, like, if they're attacking, not getting some back. And it's why it's usually better to save up your money and send like 5 shovelmen out at once, because that way they can all swing, take out the zombie in one go and only get 1 hit back. And that's kind of like the most efficient use of your resources. Once you get up to your hillbillies with a shotgun, they just slowly work through them. The next tier up is these kind of like leaper guys who I say can pose a bit of a threat. So they can jump over the shovelman if they're not engaged in melee, and so you might have the issue of having to like go back and defend your base a little bit. But your base has so much health that a lot of the strategy, and especially later on where you don't want to be just sending out shovelmen constantly, you want to be building up that capital to get those salvage yards. If you're reacting to all of it, it's just going to end up screwing you up in the long term. And I guess that's like where some of the strategy comes from. I don't know, maybe because I've grown up playing 1 video games all my life, 2 RTS games all my life. Came into this and I was just like, there is no challenge to this whatsoever. But on the flip side, I've had my girlfriend Helen playing quite a lot of them recently, just all sorts of games. She's been playing through Baldur's Gate recently. And I forget that not everyone has been playing games since they could hold a controller. I need to be a little bit more lenient on there. Helen, if you're watching this, apologies for outing you. Didn't mean it disrespectfully. I'm just saying, obviously this is something that I've grown up with. And so it's easy, and I'm certain for most people watching it's not much of a challenge. And then once you get past the leapers, you get shriekers, harpies. Like they remind me a little bit of the witches from Left 4 Dead. Well, I suppose mostly in aesthetic, but in how they act gameplay-wise, they remind me a lot more of the harpies from They Are Billions. They just sprint towards you and start just hacking out. And in fact, they've got these big old, well, I can't see, they're tiny, little pixels on my screen. But I'm assuming they have like hardened claws or something, so they give like kind of witch vibes going on. And they will absolutely fuck up your shovelmen. They have a lot more hit points in them. They can even rush down your hillbillies with the shotguns, and that's when you need either a nice big group of hillbillies so you can gun them down quickly, or you need the survivalist. You need the vehicle with the machine gun on it to make sure they don't just slice through your guys. It's actually really terrible strategy for trying to take a city out, sending people with shovels in. The good old boys. And then after the shriekers or harpies or whatever, you get the big fat guys that just troll mountains of lard. No idea how the hell a zombie has got to that big, because it looks as if it weighs about 2 tons. It's bigger than Shaquille O'Neal. I can only assume from my time having played Dead Frontier that somehow it's mutated and there's actually multiple bodies together. We don't question it. Those guys have a bit more of a challenge purely because of just the sheer amount of health points you have to get through. So even your survivalists, your machine gun guys, you want to have a critical mass of them to gun through them, otherwise they're just going to come in and they're just going to wreck that car. And it's why I wanted to at least go up to the church to get the preacher, which is fucking expensive. What, $1,500 to get the upgrade, and then another $1,500 to get the churchman, the man of God himself, Jesse Custer. And he can convert zombies and make them turn and start attacking their brethren. And obviously that's where a tiny bit of the strategy comes in. They're going to get overwhelmed by these shambler zombies, so you need to protect them. But if they can have their attacks go off and convert one of those bigger tank-like fat fucks, I don't know what to call them, the fat fucks go off, then they, pay for themselves a little bit more. That said, the only real thing to strive for in replayability from this is the shorter times. And as I mentioned at the start, if you're trying to do this as quick as possible, there's absolutely no point going that high up. $3,000 is going to pay for 5 survivalists, and in pretty much any scenario, 5 survivalists is going to win the game. The only other thing is these little yeehaw powers, which I haven't really talked about, and there's a tiny bit of strategy involved with them. So the first one you get is for basically just like a hillbilly raiding party, which costs 3,000 yeehaw points, and that spawns, I think it's like 10 shovelmen and then 4 or so of the angry farmers. And that can be very useful if you're trying to like save up money, wait for them to come to you, send them all out. But also the fact that they will go all the way to the end. They are units, essentially. So what I've just tried to do here is that I have a bunch of angry farmers to start killing things, but they need to actually be shooting for them to clump up a bit more and reach that critical mass. So I make 5 angry farmers to hit the population cap. Then you use your yeehaw ability to send them out, and that way you have 1 more angry farmers all grouped together to hit that critical mass, and also a meat shield of our own in the shovelman, and that buys us enough time to then go up to the workshop so we can grab our survivalist units. And then you have 2 more powerful yeehaw abilities, and honestly the third one I don't see the point in using, because the second one is so good that it basically makes it redundant. So the second one is a harvester, which will very slowly move from your base towards the enemy. And the great thing about the harvester is it kills absolutely everything. And moreover, as it's killing units, it's still gaining yeehaw points. So you kind of want to save it for like a specific situation where you're getting overwhelmed by the big guys and by a whole bunch of other stuff, and then you just let it loose and it just murders absolutely everything. And I appreciate the attention to detail they put with the little blood spurting out the back. It's very Tucker and Dale versus Evil. So then we kill the big guys, and that is 1,000 points for each one of them. So if you have 2 big guys there and send the harvester out, 2,000 points. In fact, it just killed a 3rd big guy that was kind of like trapped in the enemy base. So you just got 3,000 points. You just got enough to get a level 1 yeehaw all over again. And I know I've taken a little bit of damage from my base here, and honestly the only real reason for it is because we're trying to save up for the preacher mod. I just want to show like the little The little, yeah. Praise the Lord! And then the big guy is now on our side. Very, very powerful ability. The only issue is it doesn't seem to stay permanently, and I don't know if I was just like getting confused now and then, but it seemed like the big guys that we would turn would occasionally start like turning back on us, and these is like another Praise the Lord. I don't really know the inner mechanics of it, and I could be wrong. Maybe it was just me seeing it incorrectly. There isn't really much in the way of a wiki for this game. It's so old school that there's like no information out there. I just appreciate just see the big guys come out and just like it's like one of the SpongeBob meme of the fish coming in and then just like immediately walks around, or like Grandpa Simpson comes in, puts his coat down, picks his coat back up, just turns straight over. But wholly unnecessary. Survivalist would have been more than enough, and that is where the bulk of our firepower is coming from. But you know, if you're trying to reduce the amount of quote-unquote kinfolk eaten, that would be the way to do it. But you don't get any extra points for losing fewer units. I think it's just a stat they put there because they can track it. I say that as if there's any point to playing games. You play it for fun, but if you want to challenge yourself and try and make it quicker. I think there was a scoreboard originally when this game came out, so the idea is, oh, let's see if we can do it as quick as possible. And I'm almost certain if you go looking on YouTube, there's going to be people that have tried to speedrun it. Maybe there is a very niche Discord or Reddit somewhere where people are still discussing strategies to try and shave off that last half a second. I haven't found them, but I would be surprised if they did not exist. And yeah, for the final stage, just going to let the zombies, we're going to let them hit our base just a tiny bit because we want to save up for that salvage yard. I think realistically, the only way that you can lose this is if you spend all of your time just trying to send shovelmen out because you're trying to take any base damage, and you then delay the salvage yard by so much that you eventually just get overwhelmed. So I guess that's the only real strategy, is just mitigating the damage as much as possible. Just enough that you don't lose so that you can build it up. That's the only real way you can go wrong. But it seems like a game that had a really, fun core concept to it, and I'm kind of surprised that there isn't a Zombie Trailer Park 2. I did try looking for it, and maybe I haven't been able to find it, but Google failed me, ChatGPT failed me. I don't think it exists. And I don't know the individual people that made this game, because I know back in the day there probably were a lot of games made by a single person. This was made by Ninja Kiwi, and I hazard the reason why we never saw a sequel to this is because Ninja Kiwi is probably just raking it in with balloons. I was surprised that balloons are still a thing, because I remember playing Bloons 2 or 3 back in the day, and then I saw Bloons TD6, so I downloaded that for my phone, and yeah, I lost a lot of time. I say that I spent a hell of a lot more time on Bloons TD5. TD6 went a bit too mobile phony for me, with you have these agents that you can get and level them up, and I mean Bloons in general probably makes a fuck ton of money. I don't know the stats off the top of my head, but there is a lot of monetization in that, and I can still really enjoy playing Bloons because it's the kind of game that you can do everything without having to pay for it. But we know whales exist. We know there's a lot of people that spend a lot of money on shit that they really don't need to. And I'm not defending that kind of game design. I do still think it's a little bit scummy, but I kind of just understand the pragmatism of the world, and especially, as I say, having friends in the games industry, and the games industry is not doing very good at the moment. They're really struggling for work, so you gotta eat, you gotta find ways to make money. I just wish it didn't have to be quite so predatory in nature. But at least loot boxes don't seem to be quite as prominent nowadays. Or maybe they're actually more prominent than ever before, I just don't play the games that have them in it. That's entirely possible because I got pretty big of AAA games. And yeah, I've waffled on again. Yeah, the reason you don't use the third power-up is, so the harvester moves slowly, and that's actually a benefit because it covers you for a longer period of time. The bomber flies overhead, drops a whole bunch of bombs. It basically does the same thing, but because it does it quicker, it ends up covering less. I'm not wording that at all well. Because the harvester moves so slow, it not only kills everything that's on the screen at that moment, it also will kill everything that will be on the screen for like the next 10 to 15 seconds. Whereas the bomber goes straight overhead and does it so much quicker that it doesn't end up taking out quite as much. So you're paying 1,000 more yeehaw points for an ability that is less effective, does the same thing but worse. Like, honestly, they probably could have like swapped those two around. I guess just the visual of a moonshine. I'm trying to think how that fits into Hillbillies. Is it kind of just that movie where the cowboy is on top of the... No, that's a cowboy. That's not Hillbilly. I don't fucking know what the connection is other than just America. But you know, we'll make use of them. So I'm just trying to save up my money at the moment, and then as soon as these big fat bastards get near me, send out the preacher man, send out the survivalists, and yeah, I know. I probably should have made a couple of moonshine units just to show off what they can do. They don't do much. They move very slowly. They carry like a cart behind them, and they like lob stuff in. They're, I guess, slight improvement over the angry farmers, and that's about it. It is quite strange. You would think that you would put the moonshine guy before the survivalist, because the survivalist is pretty much just a straight upgrade. I don't know about the balancing of it and why they decided to do that. It's not, let's be real, it's not the kind of game that you're meant to take super seriously. I did play a little bit after I filmed this quote-unquote walkthrough. So I think I did this in, 6 minutes 27 seconds. I think I've shaved it down to about 6:01 by avoiding the preacher man. When I tried to use the moonshine guy, that number went up again. It's just, yeah. It's not a good unit. I don't know why it exists. But, you know, I suppose I didn't have a huge amount of Q&A testing, especially if you're not going to make any money for it. You know, you're just going to release something out there that people can enjoy a little bit. So there we go. 321 Zombie Squishified. Zombie Trailer Park completed. Thank you for watching.